Kamala Harris, desperate for some positive press, set up several softball interviews. Except, unlike The View and Call Her Daddy, 60 Minutes was actually a trap, as the host immediately exposed her ineptitude.
Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
The question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
But the real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. Their constituents are.
This isn't the face of joy. This is the face of someone that just realized diversity can't solve America's economy. Because when the host asked, how are you logistically going to follow through on all these lofty promises, she had nothing but those same buzzwords that pissed him off the first time. So all throughout the interview, you can see how he's actually trying to make her look stupid.
You have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for, and I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States, and I have been traveling our country, and I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds.
So he asked, why have you lied about so many of your policy positions? And she replied, because diversity. Then he asks her why they didn't take border security more seriously the first 3 years of their administration, and she desperately starts reciting buzzwords before he can finish his sentence. Because everybody knows, especially journalists, that Kamala can't actually answer in-depth questioning. So if you want to expose her stupidity, you just have to ask her what she means underneath the surface of all those slogans, and watch her caramble away so the viewer can see firsthand how incapable she is of actual sentient thought. And I'm not just calling out Kamala, as her entire ticket is this useless.
You said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square unrest when you were not.
Yeah.
Is that kind of misrepresentation, isn't that more than just being a knucklehead?
I think folks know who I am, and I think they know the difference between someone expressing emotion, telling a story, getting a date wrong rather than a pathological liar like Donald Trump.
But I think it comes down to the question of whether you can be trusted to tell the truth.
Yeah, well, I can. I think I can.
And that's not the face you want one step away from being commander-in-chief, even if the corporate media tries to relabel his panicked ineptitude as passion. But I guess his passion didn't save him from the spanking he must have received from Kamala's team, as he didn't seem to be walking with much joy today. And did Tim get paddled for his poor interview performance? Probably not, but neither did his military rank, Tiananmen Square attendance, and IVF treatments. But unlike those outright lies, at least Walls getting paddled is actually probable. But back to Kamala's so-called interviews. When she went on The View, it blew up in her face on 3 specific occasions.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Kamala constantly campaigns on fixing Biden's flaws with a new way forward, but that's instantly negated when she says there was nothing wrong with Biden's policies. But that wasn't even the worst part of the interview, as The View tried to slam Donald Trump, a private citizen, for his hurricane response.
What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness.
How exactly is Kamala calling Trump callous when he got to Georgia several days before her, crowdfunded over $7 million for hurricane victims, compared to Kamala crowdfunding for rioters? Because while Trump was actually assisting in Georgia as hundreds of lives were lost, Kamala was busy recording an episode of the Call Her Daddy podcast talking about tampons.
I have seen girls on the street walk up to men and be like, do you know where a tampon goes? Do you know how many tampons we use? I'm curious, like, you don't do too many long form interviews. What made you want to do Call Her Daddy today?
Well, I think you and your listeners have really got this thing right, which is one of the best ways to communicate with people is to be real, you know, and to talk about the things that people really care about.
Yes, this show covers the real issues that voters care about, like the episode right before Kamala, providing in-depth discussions about how to inhale his front tail, or when Katy Perry went on and they discussed putting your eater on his Peter, or the other episode about being with two dudes at the same time, or the episode before that about cheating on your significant other, like Harris's husband, or the episode before that also about cheating on your significant other, like Harris's husband. As before Kamala came on, the show looked more like this.
And they go like,
And it's like, you go like,
And even when they at least tried to talk politics on the Call Her Daddy podcast, they clearly have no idea what they're talking about.
and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision
I know what you're gonna ask.
about a man's body? Let's
No.
just pause.
No.
Is there any law?
No.
As everybody in the comment section complained about how they conveniently forgot about the military draft. You know, the law that only applies to men. But honestly, I don't care that nobody on the Call Her Daddy show knows or even thinks about the draft. It's a podcast for women, specifically about sex. But I do have an issue with the sitting vice president of the United States that gleefully pledges billions of our tax dollars to both sides of every overseas conflict she so desperately wants us involved in, and how she doesn't seem to even know what the military draft is. So this podcast appearance makes her look equally inept and tone deaf, as while she's talking tampons to the daddy girls, millions of Americans were without power after the hurricane, as the next one is already on its way. Because remember, we're only talking about the podcast because she tried to attack Trump during her fluff piece on The View. But as they aired Harris's episode on The View, Biden randomly went live at the same exact time to praise Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his hurricane response.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call.
And this is right after Kamala tried to slam DeSantis for not taking her hurricane calls.
People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish.
Which DeSantis immediately puts Harris in her place.
And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts.
And this wasn't even the first time Biden blocked Harris's airtime, as when she tried to make a speech to the unions. For the first time in over 3 years, Biden made a briefing room appearance as president. Not to say anything necessarily important, but to make sure Kamala gets dragged down alongside his failures.
She helped pass all the laws that are being employed now. She was a major player in everything we've done, including passage of legislation which we were told we could never pass. And so she's been, and her staff is interlocked with mine in terms of all the things we're doing.
I really think Biden secretly hates Harris, constantly stealing her shine by doing press conferences he's never done before, tying her name to failed policies she desperately says she can fix. It's almost like Biden is angry for kicking him off the ticket. He's just one step away from openly campaigning for Donald Trump. Oh wait, it already looks like he is. So if you appreciate my concise, lighthearted commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality, hopefully I've earned your subscription, then go check out the video on the moment Kamala's teleprompter crashed and the audience finally got to see who she actually is.